everyone, it's Jai452 back again, going behind the mask. My special guest today is none other than the one, the only
Darren Passarello from season 1 of Who Wants to Be a Superhero, Stanley's show on Sci-Fi Channel.
Hi Darren, how are you today?
Good, how are you? I'm coming to you live, recorded from Los Angeles, depending on when people are watching this. If it's now,
very later. Well. Sorry?
I said if it's later, then it's pre-recorded. If it's now, it's live.
It's pre-recorded.
Then it's pre-recorded.
So it looks like it's a beautiful day in LA. Pardon?
It's almost 120 degrees right now.
Oh, wow. I wish I could say the same over here in Scotland. It's like really cold and only 15 degrees. Yeah, but we get it cold in Scotland. So we're here to...
So that counts.
Pardon?
You guys have David Tennant from Scotland, so it counts.
So we're here today to, like you said, to speak about your time on the show, Who Wants to Be a Superhero, that the wonderful Stan Lee was one of the driving forces behind. But before we do that, let's kind of learn a little bit about yourself, like who you were before you became NItro G on the show. See, I did my research. It
was actually really simple. I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
I was a senior in high school when I found out about the show, when they were holding auditions for it. I was working at my local comic book store at the time because I was a big comic book fan and grew up on superheroes and X-Men and a lot of Stan's characters. And then really got into DC Comics as I got older, which I know is heresy. I apologize.
It's not really. It's not.
It's extremely quiet an hour ago, and now everybody is coming by. But I know it's heresy to say that my favorite superhero is Green Lantern, because the movie was really bad, and it's also not a Stan Lee character. However, Stan did do his take on the Green Lantern when he created the DC Universe back in the late 90s, early 2000s, so there's that. But not much before the show happened. I was in high school, growing up in New York City, and then went to college to study film and entertainment, which I was in the middle of when the show started.
I do believe that you were one of the younger competitors on the show. Like, when I did my research a little bit earlier today, I noticed you were about 18 when you went up for the part in season 1.
So I was younger than 18. Say I was 18 for the show purposes and legal stuff, which, it's been almost,
6 years now? About
right?
6 years, maybe?
Yeah, well, when was it, like 2000? No, 2006 was the show. And we're in 2017, going on 2018, so about 11 years, going on 12, since we started filming the show. So I was a little under 17 at the time. And just turned 17 that summer and going into college. So kind of just your regular high school kid in college, studying film and entertainment, and then getting a chance to be in an actual TV show at that age while I'm learning that stuff was really cool and epic. So kind of nothing really exciting before the show happened, just because I was really young, and I think I was one of the youngest on the show. The next, probably Telephone Girl.
I think the next person that I can remember, because over here in the UK, we only got 2 seasons of what I would class as the adults, and then we got what was, and this is really something really interesting, because the other people that I've spoken to from season 1 and season 2 didn't know this actually happened, but over here in the UK, what we got was a child-specific, really young children season.
The BBC version.
Pardon?
The BBC version that they did?
Yeah, we got that over here in the UK, and I was really surprised about that, because I was like, does this mean that they're going to do an adult version over here as well? Because I'd love to do something like that, like yourself. I kind of started off with Marvel and then migrated over to DC. I know heresy, blah blah blah, but as a comic book fan, I don't really think it matters which side you read. The fact is you're reading comics and you're enjoying the characters, so big deal on that. I think though the second youngest person that I picked up on from both seasons was Trisha from season 2.
Oh yeah, Yeah, I think she was like 18 or something.
Yep. Which
My cell phone girl was probably like 20, 22.
I think for legal reasons, I can say she was she was 18 on the show, not 18. So when you first, well, when you were kind of like in high school, you said that you read a lot of comic books. Was there any particular characters that Stan created that really stood out for you?
For me in high school, it was more Human Torch and Iceman.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, pretty much the same character, just with different powers. They have the same personality between Bobby Drake and Johnny Storm. And kind of that fun, awkward guy, like sort of how Chris Pratt is Star-Lord in the movies, was kind of the character that appealed to me.
Mm-hmm.
But I grew up loving the kind of characters like that. I loved Spider-Man, I loved Peter Parker, but I always wanted to be more of the cooler guy. That was funny, stood out, and wasn't necessarily the most popular in school, but not as nerdy as Peter Parker.
Okay. How much of what Stan had developed into those characters made it into NItro G?
I would say maybe about 50%.
Mm-hmm.
It was more, and I hate to say this once again, a lot of it was more influenced by Green Lantern and by DC superheroes than it was any of Stan's characters. The only thing that really I took from Stan's characters at the time in 2006, and this was before Marvel Studios was even launched, before they even did Iron Man, was Peter Parker's sense of responsibility and having the power that came with great responsibility and making sure that you didn't put yourself before anything else. So I'd say that was the biggest influence on Stan's characters that he created. Mm-hmm. Other than that, I took a lot from Green Lantern, a lot from Superman, and Batman.
So once you kind of decided that you were going to go for this, what was the general kind of like thought in your house? Were your parents supportive? Brothers and sisters, what were they like? And obviously school friends as well, because you were still kind of at school at the time. So what was the general consensus from you going into this?
About it. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my family, my friends, or anybody. I just kind of submitted for it and was like, I'm going to do this. And I didn't really think about it. You know, being 17 at the time, you don't really put too much thought into a lot of stuff that you do. And just like, I'm just going to submit this. I saw it as an ad in Wizard magazine at the comic book store, and just did an audition tape on the weekend with my friend, and that was it. And then we got a letter and a phone call about a month later for it, and my mom was like, I didn't know you even did this thing. I was like, yeah. She's like, all right, well, I guess we should really look into this and like call our lawyer and make sure like this is legitimate. I was like, all right. And then about a week after that, I was flying out to LA for costume fitting and for meeting the producers in person.
No.
So I was one of the few people from season 1 that was casted outside of LA and didn't have to audition. I sent in a tape, and they immediately casted me right after the audition tape.
Now, when you got word back about actually it was going ahead kind of thing, like what were you feeling at that point? Because I can imagine as a younger person, that must have been something that was like, oh my god, this is happening, you
know. It honestly didn't really hit me. Like I said, you know, at the age of 17, 18, things really don't hit you as much because you're kind of not really thinking about anything. Just like, oh, all right, well, I guess this is happening. This is the thing that I'm doing. And that was really it. It didn't really hit me until years later, probably when I was in my 20s, when I started working for Stan, that A, I even did the show, and B, I'm working for Stan Lee. But it just seemed like kind of a natural thing for someone my age to do, that I never really registered with it as I was doing it.
Looking back on it, when do you think it really did hit you back then? Like, when did it all become real for you?
Probably when I turned, I want to say like 21, 22, like years after, it kind of just hit me and it was like, oh wow, this is a real thing that's actually happened. Like, especially when I graduated college and I was ready to start my career in the film industry and in the television industry, and I had all these credits going back to 17, that's when it kind of was like, oh wow, I'm like light years ahead of anybody who's graduating with me in school right now and trying to start their career, because I've already did it when I was 17.
Awesome. So let's move on a little bit to when you come down to, was it LA it was shot in?
Yes.
Okay, so you're coming down to LA. Did any of your parents come with you, or a guardian, or was you just on your own?
This was all on my own. This was the first time that I ever traveled on my own, outside of the state on my own, with no one, no parents, no friends, nothing, and just kind of went and did it.
So how is that for you? Is that kind of a little bit, again, I know that you kind of mentioned that you don't really tend to think about it when you're that age, but was that intimidating knowing that you weren't going to be around your family for an extended period of time?
No, I mean, growing up, I was always really independent and really didn't associate much with anybody, and always went off and did my own thing and just did it without asking. So I was used to kind of just being on my own a lot. So from kind of felt natural, and it was something like, all right, well, this is something I need to do anyway. I think my parents were more emotional about it than I was, and about letting me go on my own.
As parents often are.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm doing this, so one way or the other, it's happening.
Awesome. So did you start to put together a costume before you left for LA?
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Did you start to put together the NItro G costume before you left for LA?
Yes, actually. So it was a design I was working on for a character during art class and film class. And then basically once I got casted and we were doing the audition tape, I decided to design the costume and got a bunch of friends who I knew were cosplayers to help me sew, because I have no sewing abilities whatsoever, to put it together for the audition tape. And it took maybe about a week to kind of stitch everything together, sew it, fit it to myself. And then when that didn't work out so well, I just took Under Armour that actually already fit me, and then just added some lining to it, and that was it.
Awesome. So coming over to LA and meeting the producers, when you were in that particular position, did you get the opportunity to meet Stan?
No, I didn't meet Stan until we started doing the promos for the show. So even before, when we were doing the costume fitting, and then when we were actually filming the show, we never met Stan. He wasn't there because he pre-recorded a lot of stuff. It wasn't until we started doing the promos for the show after the show was done being filmed, and we spent the week doing promo shoots, photos. We met Stan during that because he had to come to the back lot and start shooting his photos and stuff for the teasers for it. And so Stan in the green room for the first time.
So what was that like for you in particular? Because coming from a comic book background, as a lot of the other members of the shows have been, they've kind of mentioned that's quite an interesting kind of interaction. Like when you first meet Stan, like a lot of people have this notion of him being like the grandfather of comic books. You know, he's like untouchable, but yet when you meet him in person, he's such a down-to-earth and nice guy and very, very approachable. So when you first met him, did you have that kind of same, oh my god, it's Stan Lee, starstruck kind of?
Well, I was actually, I want to say that I was intimidated, but I wasn't, and I wasn't really starstruck. At the time, when I first met him, I was really into the death of Gwen Stacy storyline, and covering that and reading all those comics, so I really wanted to ask him about Gwen Stacy and why he decided to do such a controversial thing like kill off Gwen Stacy when she was at the height of her popularity. And I just remember going up to him, just real New Yorker style at the time, and just being like, why'd you kill Gwen Stacy for? It was his love, and then all of a sudden now she's dead. And I remember him looking at me and going, I don't remember. All I know is I wanted to go on vacation. John Romita was asking me questions. I said, do whatever you want to do. I left for vacation. I came back. Gwen Stacy was dead. And I looked, and just everything inside of me kind of dropped, and I was like, that is not the answer I was expecting. I thought it was going to be some profound thing, some reason, and it just turns out he needed to leave the office to catch his flight and didn't realize what John Romita did.
And that, oddly enough, like, having spoken with, like I said, multiple other people from different shows, and getting an idea of what Stan is like as a person, that sounds like something he would totally do.
Yeah.
You know? And I always think it really interesting because I'm going to name drop here, so, you know, whatever. I spoke to Melody from season 2, Hygiena.
Yes.
And she mentions how her daughter is, like, enamored with Stan whenever they're at Comic-Cons together. She just, like, her daughter runs up to Stan and gives him a great big hug, like it's Grandpa Stan, which I think is so fantastic because it really does give me another layer of saying, oh my god, Stan Lee, the person, you know, not the legend behind, or the titan behind the comic book industry, which is really difficult to approach. So let's talk about your housemates, or your castmates, as I should say, in season 1. You had Fat Mama, Feedback, Major Victory, Cell Phone Girl.
Correct.
Lemuria,
and Monkey Woman.
And Monkey Woman, yes.
Yeah,
I think there was one or two other people that I'd possibly missed, and I'm really sorry if I have.
There was Tuberculous,
Mm-hmm.
and then Levity,
Mm-hmm.
and Creature.
Awesome. I have to admit, I loved watching Creature on season 1. I thought she was fantastic. Who, out of everybody that we've named there, did you gel with the most on the first day? You know, like, possibly even still in a kind of like pre-audition kind of process.
So when I first got there and when I was growing up, I really bonded with Feedback a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But came from the same kind of backgrounds and really connected right away. And him and I had become really close friends. And then I became friends with Fat Mama, and her and I still talk, and I still talk with her children. But ironically, as I got older, I became really, really close with Levity, Tobias, who lives out here in LA with his husband. And him and I have stayed in touch throughout the years, and we're still really close. And I think growing up, you know, as you're maturing, you develop different kinds of friendships with different people. And so when I was a kid, Feedback was more of kind of like somebody on that level with me that still wanted to have fun and wanted to do kid stuff and still really engaged. And getting older, you know, dealing with someone like Tobias, who's in the industry, who's involved with Disney and Nickelodeon and does a lot of animation stuff, I can gel with him more on a more professional level, on a more entertainment industry level, as I'm older, and sit down and kind of enjoy nice dinners together, or something more mature than just always having fun all the time. So it's interesting to see who you really bond with as you grow up and as your personality develops and changes, and the type of stuff that you're into.
So when I was speaking with Lamura, I'm really sorry, like, I've never really, like, I'm not really certain how to pronounce her name, and even when I was, like, interviewing her, I had real trouble with her actual name. So,
Tonatsin?
Pardon?
Was it Tonatsin?
Yeah. Tonatsin. So when I was speaking with her, she mentioned that Alison, Fat Mama,
Yes.
really was in that role of mother person, like behind the camera.
Right.
Is that something that you can confirm, that she was very motherly to the entire group?
Yes, and she was, I think, one of the only people that had children at the time. So it was an instinct for her to want to be a mother and to want to take care of everybody, regardless of how old we were.
Another thing that Tanzanine mentioned about Fat Mama is that she was very aware of when the cameras were on, you know, like, and she played certain aspects of, oh, right, the camera's on, so this is what I have to be. Was there anybody else in the group that was very much like that? Other than...
No. You know, and I can't really speak for everyone, but I think most of the people who were on the show were aware that it was a TV show and that they were there for entertainment purposes, and so, you know, they played a role. One of the few people who was genuine all the time and kind of, I don't think, was as aware as everybody else that cameras were on and that this wasn't reality was Feedback, who was just really having fun with the whole experience and living out one of his childhood dreams. He didn't think about the cameras. He didn't think about it being a TV show. He was just excited to be there and to be able to do something he's always wanted to do since he was a child.
Now, do you think that benefited him? Like, obviously he went on to win the show. Do you think, looking back, that was a benefit for him in particular, or do you think it would have benefited more of the cast to be like that?
I mean, sorry.
That's fine.
Hold on, I gotta...
That's not a problem. One sec, guys, we'll be right back. So, 5. So you mentioned how Feedback was very, very genuine on the show. Do you think, looking back on it now, that was something that benefited him as an like an individual on the show. Obviously, he went on to win the show. So do you think that benefited him, or did it hinder his performance, or do you think it would have benefited more people's performances to just kind of realize, show?
I mean, before getting into the industry and really not knowing how things worked, you always thought that, okay, well, it was all organic and it was all something that people decided while it was going on and felt that it would work out. But now, knowing how things work and knowing how the industry works, it was kind of plotted out and scripted way before we even got there to film. They already knew who they wanted to win what and to be where and to do what and how they wanted it to work and who they wanted in the top three. Mm-hmm. Only thing they never really had planned out until the end of the show was which out of the three were going to be the final winner. And that was kind of more determined by, I guess, the fans who watched the show and their votes and what they wanted. But they had everything plotted out way before we even started filming. Because once again, it is a TV show. It is like any other entertainment property where you kind of have to have a plan, you have to have a budget, you have to know what's going to happen and go on, or otherwise the production is just going to run itself.
That was something that previous interviewees / castmates from season 1 and 2 have also kind of mentioned, that a lot of it was partially scripted. Not absolutely everything was scripted, because let's be fair, right. A lot of what we see when you guys are showing like tears and such like is genuine. It's not a kind of case of, oh, they're just acting. Although there are some kind of close calls, shall we say. So let's talk about the challenges on the show. Both for when you were there and after you kind of left the show, or were eliminated. So what was your favourite challenge to do on the show?
I mean, for me, like I said, I wasn't really paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
Just that young and being on TV, I wasn't really paying attention to what challenges actually were or what the rules were or what people were telling me. I think for me, the coolest thing was, oh, wow, I have a cell phone that you gave me that I get to communicate to people with. Awesome. Mm-hmm. After the show, having to go back home to New York and not tell anybody but my mom and dad that I was home because we were under NDA and they couldn't know who was eliminated from what and what was happening on the show. I couldn't even go out of the house or do anything really until like the show was done filming for like a week. So that was kind of a challenge. But looking back and watching the show after it was done and seeing kind of all the challenges the other contestants had to do, I think I really would have loved to have done that tightrope walking challenge where they crossed the building and they thought they were crossing on a string and they really weren't. I think I would have had a lot of fun with that.
Was there any particular challenge that you've seen on the show that you wouldn't have wanted to do?
I mean, the dog challenge with the bodysuits, I probably would have punched the dog in the face and gotten in trouble. So I'm kind of glad that I wasn't there for that one, because that probably would have resulted in some really terrible things.
The funny thing is, I've heard so many different things about each of that, because it was on season 1 and 2. And the funny thing was, for season 2, we were getting told by some of the people who were like on season 2 that they might not bring that challenge back. And it was a complete surprise on the day when they did it, because they weren't intending to do it, but then they said, oh, you know what, it's like 6:30 in the afternoon, we couldn't do the challenge that we had planned because of weather or some excuse, so let's just throw them at this dog challenge. We've got dogs. But I think it was Tanzanine that was saying at either side of where the camera was, really, you had the trainers for the dogs, and if it really looked as if the dog was really like clamping down on you really, really hard, the trainers were there to just say like the key phrase to get the dog to just slightly release. Which I found really, really, really interesting, because watching those shows, both seasons, that was the part that I always dreaded the most. Like I dreaded watching some poor person getting like knocked over by a dog and literally having the dog shake their arm, body, whatever around. And I remember more specifically season 2 when that happened to Melody. I couldn't watch that. Like, I watched the show with my two cousins, and all three of us could not get through that like one particular section because the dog just like went right after her, and she was crying, and it was just like, oh, like we had to watch it second by second just to get through it.
Yeah,
because
really
it was just really, really intense. So when you say that you wouldn't want to do the dog one, I totally get that. Totally get it. Was there any other kind of challenges that you think could have been done better, or could have been approached differently, or a challenge that maybe that you'd have liked to have seen done on the show that wasn't?
No, I mean, I really didn't put too much thought into the challenges. I think the producers did a good job with kind of putting the twists on each challenge. So kind of giving you one thing about what it was about and then secretly throwing in something else that you didn't prepare for. Mm-hmm. I think that was, especially in particular the challenge I was in, where you had to make it to the finish line the fastest, but the real challenge was there was some girl who lost her mom and was crying that me being from New York didn't pay attention to and kind of pushed the kid out of the way just to get to the finish line. So it's, I think they did a really good job with how they approached each challenge. Mm-hmm. I don't know if I would better or suggest anything differently.
Okay. Now, we mentioned about who you got on with in the house. Was there anybody in particular that you didn't get on with in the house at the time, but you get on with now?
No, there was no one I really had animosity with or anyone that I didn't get along with. I still talk to most of the people. Like I said, Fat Mama here and there, feedback, Tonatsan, but I still really talk with Tobias the most out of the whole cast.
Awesome. So when it came to the eliminations, were you guys told ahead of time that you were going home, or was it not until basically you were on the podium and Stan said you're going home?
No, we were not told anything ahead of time. It was literally that moment when you got eliminated that you were told for the first time. Okay. So there's no preparation.
And when that happened, okay, when that happened for you, obviously that was a very emotional point in time for you, but a lot of people said that once they've gotten eliminated, they also have this kind of sigh of relief because you're getting to go home, you're getting to be with your family that you haven't seen for X amount of time. How is that for you when...
Sorry, I have to again, the card just came.
No problem.
Sure.
So, okay, so when you were on the show, was there anybody that you... Well, we kind of discovered that anybody that you didn't get on with kind of thing. When it comes to eliminations, like we obviously seen a truckload of emotion when Stan said you're going home. But as a lot of other people have said, when they've gotten eliminated, they've had this like sigh of relief because they're going home, they're getting that opportunity to breathe again and be with their families and such likes. How did you feel when Stan said, you're going home?
I mean, I didn't want to go home. It wasn't a sigh of relief at all. It wasn't like, oh great, now I can go back. What I was doing, I was like, oh man, I really wanted to just keep hanging out here. Because it was like vacation for me, so I really enjoyed it and kind of wanted to stay in LA and just be a part of everything. So it was more like, man, I really don't feel like flying back home right now.
When you got home, did you become a fan of the show? Did you like watch intensely to see who was going to be the next one to go home?
Honestly, no.
No?
I didn't watch it or tape it or look out for it. Not until I just saw who was eliminated on each time or what was going on. And it wasn't until I started working with Stan that I really watched the show or kind of saw what happened and what went on. I think the only episode I really fully watched as it was happening was the premiere episode, because we had a viewing party. But other than that, yeah, I know that's terrible to say.
It's not like... a lot of people say to me, do I go back and watch old videos that I've done with interviewing cosplayers? And I'm like, nope. Nope, I will not go back and watch old videos. Just no. So I can understand that from the, you don't want to kind of like relive that kind of thing. So let's talk about the costume that you initially made going into the audition. How much of that was changed from what we got in the final product of the show? Because some of the people have mentioned that their costumes got changed, sometimes quite dramatically, from what is in the final product to what they came on with.
They completely changed my costume from what I had. My original costume was more like a Green Lantern looking thing, and it was a two-piece. And they wound up just taking liberties with the colors and the design, and then added a cape to it and made it a onesie. And it was just it wasn't something that I would have chosen or particularly liked. Honestly, I didn't like the one they created for me. It was cool, but I would have rather have kept the one that I created because it had my thought, my input into it, and kind of something I made. And they took way too many liberties with the design, the colors, the function of it.
Okay. Because some people really did have an issue with that, like I've heard. If you were one of those people who had the opportunity to go to the likes of Stan or to one of the producers and say, look, I really don't like the changes that you guys have made, can I go back to my old costume? Would you have done that, or would you have just kind of, okay, they've given me this, I'll wear it, kind of thing?
No, I would have. If I had the chance, I would have went back to them and told them I want my old costume. I really don't like this.
Okay. I can't remember who did that, whether that was a season 2 or season 1 thing.
That was one. Tuberculous did it.
Ah, okay. What did you think of that? Because I'm guessing that must have been a bit of a shock for everybody to see Tuberculous just coming back out in his original costume.
I mean, I think that was good for him to do that because he preferred his, but I know the costume designers and the producers were not happy because it wasn't something they approved for him to go back out with.
Okay. So let's talk about a little bit after what life is like for you after the show now. Obviously, we've mentioned that you work with Stan Lee on various different projects. But also directly after the show, you guys had to tour and do the Comic-Con events. Mm-hmm. And a lot of you guys still do the Comic-Con events with Stan. So what is that kind of like for you? Do you do the Comic-Con events with him as Nitro G, or do you go as yourself?
The only time that I've done any Comic-Con stuff as Nitro was for the promotion of the show. Mm-hmm. That first San Diego Comic-Con for me that year was awesome. It was amazing. I loved it. And then every year since then, I've been going for work with Stan, with Marvel, with Disney, and doing it more work, behind the scenes stuff. And I got to tell you, I hate the convention circuit so much. And anybody that actually has to work the convention circuit on the business side, if I didn't have to go to San Diego, I wouldn't. It's way too many people. It's way too crowded. It's hot. It's just a lot of nonsense I'd rather not deal with. And year 1 was amazing. Now we're on like year 13, and I'm just like, I'm done. And I think that's for anybody at Comic-Con who's not going as a fan. If you didn't have to go, you wouldn't go.
So that's, yeah, like, I'm kind of interested that you've got that opinion, because that is something that I would love to do. Comic-Con and such like is not a really wide thing over here. We only have London Film Comic-Con and London MCM that are like the really big events over in the UK. And the website that I work for, iGame, we always publicise San Diego Comic-Con. Yep. And it's one of the things I'll always sit and watch. You know, like I'll say to my, like, the website owner, can we like please put up all the videos from San Diego Comic-Con? He's like, no, we can only put up a select few. But I'm like, but can we please add more? Like, more of the videos?
I always recommend going once and experiencing it, but like after 13 years, I'm kind of over it.
I would definitely like want to work behind the scenes. Yeah. I would just be like, hire me and I'll work for you here at San Diego Comic-Con. But then that's me. You know, I'm sane like that. So let's move on now from away from the show.
My phone is about to die. It's only at 5% because we've been on this for almost 50 minutes. So okay. If there's any,
I'll try and make this as quickly as possible. So, like we mentioned, you are now working for Stan Lee, and let's find out what that is like. Like, what is it like working for a legend in Stan Lee?
Well, so right after the show was over, Stan asked me to come work for him and to start his digital stuff. And at the time, it was MySpace, and just help him through MySpace. So I started working with Stan and instructing him how to get on MySpace, and then Twitter, and then Facebook, and one thing led to another, and then worked with him on all of the digital properties, and worked at Power Entertainment, heading up the digital division that he had, and launching those Google Premium channels that they had on YouTube. And we started working with Disney when Disney worked with Stan and Pow, and then launched Marvel Studios in 2008. So it was kind of awesome, and kind of just springboarded from there. And about 2.5 years ago or so, I left and started my own production company, Agents of Mayhem, and consulted for Stan, Disney, and Marvel on all of their projects. And so now it's kind of cool when I used to work for Stan and for Pow and work under him and kind of learn from him. I'm now working with him side by side and co-producing things and projects and properties. And just kind of cool to see someone that I knew as a child and who brought me under his wing and mentored me to be kind of one of my contemporaries now in the industry that I'm working side by side with on things is really, really awesome.
So my last piece of advice, well, my last question really for you is a small piece of advice. For anybody who is a young individual similar to yourself that would want an opportunity like this, what advice would you give them?
I would say never give up on your dreams. I mean, if there's something you believe in and someone tells you don't do it, it's not possible, it's really hard, or coming out to LA to be an actor is really hard. If you really want it, don't listen to them. And it's not going to be easy, and it's not going to happen right away, and you are going to be broke, and you're going to be hurting, and you're going to be giving all of your money to your craft, but you can't give up. And I know it seems hopeless a lot of the times, and it seems like it's taking forever, and you want to just quit and give up, but you shouldn't. If you really believe in something and you really want it, you really need to power through it, because it's all worth it when it actually happens. And it will happen as long as you stick to it. It's the minute that you stop and you give up that it's not. And that's when you should throw in the towel. But I always recommend never giving up, even if it's hard, even if you're struggling, even if you have no money. And I know parents would hate me for giving that advice. Follow your desire, follow your dream, follow your craft, and just don't stop. Don't ever stop.
So before we finish up, guys, we're going to do the quick pass over in like various places that you can get a hold of us. But if you have any more questions for myself or for Darren, you can put them in the comment section just down below. Also, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, where you can find more interviews, some with cosplayers and some with the aforementioned members of Season 1 and Season 2 of Who Wants to Be a Superhero here on the Jai452 channel, or you can catch up with some of my gaming stuff. However, though, if you cannot for some reason get enough of me, you can find me very readily and very commonly even on this wonderful website here, iGameOnline.net. As you can see, we have a Facebook and a YouTube channel, so you can catch up with more content happening there. If, however, you want some more cosplay content, you can check out the NEUK cosplayers, which are Kobe Kicks, Alpha Betty, and Little Rascal. I've been Jai452, Darren has been Darren, and this has been Behind the Mask. We'll be back with another interview really soon. Bye, guys.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.